We used to live in a highly competitive society, and even though men were incredibly competitive, it was done in a respectful way. And I see the changing tide in society at the moment. Andrew Tate coming on the scene, God bless his soul. He's not perfect, obviously, but I think he is a force for good. A force for good. Men are learning to become competitive again, but I worry. I worry as a wise old man of 28 who has lived the life of a 60-year-old, some 60-year-olds at least. I fear and I worry that men who have not been competitive for most of their lives and who are learning to be competitive uh, based on what Andrew Tate is teaching, and I'm not throwing shade on what Andrew Tate is teaching, but I worry that they're going to do it in an unhealthy way. Because competition can be done in a way that is repeatable and doesn't produce any harm for society. It only produces good. But competition can occur in a way that it produces harm to society because it inflicts genuine harm on individuals, which creates a lot of pain, and not just healthy competitive pain, but genuine pain and suffering for these individuals in a way that's not constructive. And then these individuals will seek to replicate that pain in others through their own behaviors because judge a fruit judge a tree by the fruit it bears. And so trees that have good roots bear good fruit. Trees with bad roots, pain and suffering, bear the fruits of pain and suffering and evil. It's not an ideal situation. So as the leaders of society, men who are in positions of leadership and who have influence, we need to start considering how can we establish guardrails and ensure effective education for younger men, all men, about what healthy competition looks like. So I'm going to posit to you my thesis of what healthy competition looks like. Well, what's the goal of healthy competition? The goal of healthy competition is to ensure that competition can occur with, within men, between men, without producing negative harm to society. So I think a core tenet of respectful competition, healthy competition, is respect. Freudian slip. It's respect. And respect is I'm not seeking to cause you genuine harm. I am just being competitive. And an example of that is in, say, MMA or any other combat sports. When you're sparring, you're not there to hurt them. You're there to train and increase your skills. So, the agreed upon rule set between both parties in sparring is we're only going to go X amount hard. We're not going to do this, or we're only going to do this. And as long as we both adhere to that rule set, that's okay. And as long as we are both respectful to each other, that is to say, not seeking to cause genuine harm and pain, then healthy competition can occur, in my view, because you're being very respectful and you're taking the other person into consideration while you're both sharing the same space of competition and you're both seeking to win or dominate one another. And another way respect has influence on healthy competition, I like to use examples from fight gyms because I think they are the perfect example of this. You go to fight gyms, everyone's very respectful. There are some fight gyms that are not respectful, but those instructors are usually full of ego and in not a good way because there are better and worse ways to have an ego and to utilize it for the benefit of everyone. But you go into very, very, very competitive fight gyms and they're very friendly, very nice, very respectful. And when we're sparring, it's like if you go a little bit too hard and you're only meant to be going 40% or 50% and you've just accidentally smacked them, you're like, oh, sorry, sorry. Like, you show genuine apology. And there's another word that should come to mind but isn't. Like when you feel sorry for remorse. And I'll use another example. Like I was at a boxing gym like a week or two ago, and we were just doing body sparring, and I just have very quick reflexes, and so it's a little bit hard for me to temper them sometimes because I train in such a way that it becomes muscle memory. Like I put a lot of effort into not drilling movements that I don't want to actually have happen, because the more we practice a movement or do anything, the more we strengthen that neural pathway, in, and thus increasing the likelihood that it'll happen again and the speed at which it'll happen. Although that speed part I'm not 100% about, so take that last part with a grain of salt. Although in my own experience, anecdotally, the more you do something, it does seem to get faster because you tend to use less of your brain when you're doing it because it becomes automated. Like when you're driving, when you're first starting to learn to drive versus you driving now, it's much easier. But I digress. Healthy competition. We just need to ensure that we stay within the agreed upon rule set. We are respectful, which means having empathy for the other party and taking them into consideration, which is to say, don't just bash someone during sparring. You're there to learn and to get better, not hurt people. We're not there to hurt people. Even though combat sports are about violence, there are better and worse ways to do it. If we're playing a game, you want to act in such a way that people want to play the game with you a different time. If you win if you win one event, one competitive event, or one instance of competition, and other people just think you're not a good apple and you're not enjoyable to spar, or you're not respectful in sparring, or you're just generally not good to have around, well, then they're not going to invite you to play again. And then how competitive are you going to be on your own? Not very. This is why people who don't, generally speaking, play by the rule set in society, and I'm not talking about the bankers and government people specifically, although they don't break the rules because they make the rules. And if you make the rules, then you can act in such a way where you're not breaking any rules because you made the rules for you. I digress. I've just forgotten what I've gone up to. Anyways, my ADHD. No excuses, Dylan. No excuses. We just need to compete in a way in which we are invited back to play again. That's it. Just be respectful. Don't let your competitive instinct and urge, don't let that turn you into an evil person. And it's really important that as men, we retain our killer instinct. In fact, it's so critically important to the survival of our species and our society that we risk losing that through the pussification of men, and it's an existential risk. Long story short, healthy competition is respectful competition, empathy and consideration. Peace.